morning, everybody, and welcome to our first Tech Tribe Community Masterclass, the first of 2022. Excited to have you back and excited to have a new audience back with us. My name is Tadisiro, and as always, I will be your host this morning. Thank you for joining us. Please feel free to pop in the chat compliments of the new year. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are joining us. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, so we get to know each other, and as well so the speakers as well know who they're talking to and who is joining us today and what you are looking forward to the session this morning. So any instructions, anyone in the chat? Hi, Danielle. Thank you. Welcome. So today, we are talking about, today's masterclass is about startup team readiness. So investment readiness equals team readiness and business readiness. And we're exploring the importance of team readiness along the business readiness so that you can be at the top of your game. And one of the main things today is to gain key strategies and how we can navigate all of that for ourselves and also in building the business so that we are able to reach that point where we can get investment. So welcome. I see we've got someone from Ethiopia. We've got Tokyo joining us today, and Lifa from South Africa. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We've got an exciting lineup of speakers this morning. We've got Mr. Patrick Krapi, Acting CEO at the Technology Innovation Agency, Nambula Kachumi, founder and CEO of WEAC from Zambia. We've got Buntu Majaja, Director of Entrepreneurship Ecosystems and Digital Innovation at the SA Innovation Summit, Janine from Headroom, a clinical psychologist and coach, and Greg as well, an executive coach from Headroom. And facilitating the session today for us is Susanna, the founder of Headroom Mental Health, and they are going to take us through what it is to be startup team readiness. So welcome, Susanna, and your panelists this morning. We're very, very excited for this session and to learn so much more about how we can become investment readiness in a different way than what we've discussed before. So good morning and thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Tarisiro, for the great introduction. It's so exciting to have to see so many people from so many different places here, and you know, equally exciting to have speakers who represent different countries and yeah, different areas of expertise on this talk. So what I am going to do, I'm going to jump straight in, if that's okay. I will be sharing my screen and I will let the speakers talk about their various areas of expertise. Like I mentioned, we will take it from a broad ecosystem perspective, which will be led by Mr. Patrick Krapi. And after him, Buntu will take us through investment readiness and some principles of investment readiness, as well as some very practical tips for the entrepreneurs out there. And following that, we will be chatting with Nambula, who has some great lessons learned from acceleration programs that her organization WEAC runs in Zambia. And we at Headroom have also collaborated with WEAC and with Nambula. We've accelerated together entrepreneurs also on the team readiness side, which is the topic that we will be focusing on today. From there on, Greg will take us through the aspect of what is important in teams and psychological safety in teams, what that means, and how that plays into the overall team readiness in startups. Finally, Janine will look at a more individual aspect of mental and psychological readiness for growth in entrepreneurship. So I hope that that will give us some very good material for you to be able to ask questions and clarifications. Please don't be shy. We are monitoring the chat group here, and we will be very, very happy to answer any of those. And I do have to apologize right now because somebody has decided to cut the grass just outside of my window. So I will step aside very briefly and go and try and deal with that. And I will hand over to Patrick, who is the acting CEO of TIA, and he will take us through the ecosystem state of entrepreneurship and entrepreneur development at the moment.
Morning, everyone, and thanks very much, Susanna and Thierry, for the introduction. I don't know, I don't have to switch on my video, right? Just guide me on this.
Please do. We'd like to see you.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
please.
perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm on screen, so I thought, yeah, the video sometimes when you've got a lot of icons on the side, they do tend to obstruct the text on the presentation, but I hope that's not the case for everybody on the side. Yeah, and colleagues and friends, I think good morning, welcome. And I'm probably gonna be as quick as I can be on this and just focus on the key things. But to start with how I ended up here on this screen, briefly, I met Susanna in Cape Town, and we spoke about Headroom, and she told me what they are about, and in particular, dealing with the psychosocial aspects of entrepreneurship. And it struck a note with me sitting at TIA as acting CEO. Why? Because I felt that this was something very interesting and quite profound as an intervention in the system where we are all struggling with the success rate of our entrepreneurs and enterprises. And I thought that an area around mental well-being of entrepreneurs is something that our ecosystem doesn't really think about and pay attention to as a critical success factor. And so I said, we don't do this at TIA. And so we are the guys who deal with technology. You know, we look at what you do, we're interested in that potential market, off we go. And it helped me reflect in terms of how do we as TIA embrace this and make it part of our, call it an intervention in one of our offerings. And we're still having conversations about this in terms of how can we do that? Because we are judged by the market in terms of the number of startups we create that are successful ultimately, because they have to create jobs. So I thought I should say why this is very important. So with me, this session, I think, and this project overall resonates with me at a strategic level from the point of view of fixing the organization and making sure that we focus on that which the ecosystem does not focus. And I think it will, I'm hoping that history will judge us positively if we win on this mission. My topic today that Susanna challenged me to speak about, and I thought it was quite appropriate that she rather allowed me to speak broadly about what obtains in the ecosystem that is working well and what is it that is not working well. Ultimately, that can lead to the development of sustainable entrepreneurs in the continent. So I'll speak at the level of the continent somewhat, but naturally I'll always fall back on that which I know best, i.e. the borders of our country. But I think what I will say will help to reflect, will have to, I suppose, inform other colleagues in other parts of the continent. I'm happy to see the profile of participants that it covers most people from different parts of the continent. First question for me, when I was reflecting on this question is, what are the critical success factors for a startup? And I'm using the word startup because this is our key area of focus. And please forgive me when I always talk about technology along the way, because this is the core of what we support. And in this, I framed my problem statement around when you look at the ecosystem and what are the key ingredients of this system. It's around funding, availability of funding for startups to thrive. What obtains in the system is the funding available to support entrepreneurs who have ideas that they want to take to market. And our ecosystem in South Africa is fairly, I think, let's call it dynamic. I'm always careful not to say developed because it's relative. We don't measure to other countries of a similar level. But the point for me is, we have a fair amount of funding from government. We have a good amount of funding available from the private sector. But much of the funding that is available, we know, is more interested in your post-revenue companies. Our funding that is available is not patient. There's no patient capital that allows you to take time to get your product into the market over a projected period of time. So for me, that's an area that just be aware of for those of you who are entrepreneurs. I mean, you are participating in the space, so you know what it means. So basically, there's lack of adequate capital that is patient in the country. Most of the instruments that we have are from government. So the design of the current instruments, I think, is an area that we need to look at to make sure that there's adequate enough capital. Let us not fool ourselves because there's a lot of VC that is active in the country. Right? It's emerging, it's still nascent, but it doesn't measure according to the other countries that have very dynamic VC ecosystem. Our VCs are still more interested in, as I said, post-revenue, but none of our venture capital and other funders are more interested in high-risk ideas that don't even have a minimum viable product. So that is important just to note. So for me, this is important. The second aspect, quite frankly, when you look at this is, the availability of products that entrepreneurs are developing, whether you have a minimum viable product that is important, whether there is a need in the market for your product that is quite important. So, and access to markets is the third component that I thought is something to think about just quickly at high level. There's public sector markets, one. There's private sector markets, which is, let me call it the corporate sector market. And then the third element is your just general market where you get punished by a customer for price quality. And that's it. And so when you organize yourself around how to get your product out to market, you need to appreciate the peculiarities in each one of these. But I think the great potential really for offtake, especially of new products in the market, our governments have a responsibility to make sure that they are the ones who create that market and open up the procurement spaces. For me, that is quite critical. And I think this is where we're not doing extremely well. The corporate sector is generally hooked up too much to previous people that have had dealings with this, so they generally don't open up their supply chains easily to new entrants. And so it's an area that I think we need to focus on as well. There is a lot of, which is the last element on this, there's a lot of enterprise development support that is out there in the country, a lot of accelerators, a lot of incubators. My only issue being at TIA is that there's not enough of what I call technology entrepreneurship accelerators and those that support techno entrepreneurs. They're very limited. So it's an area where as TIA, we want to intervene and assist. Three things when in TIA we look at, and I was chatting a bit to Suzanne when we were preparing for this session, was to say in TIA, when we're looking at investing in an entrepreneur, and so suppose this is where the conversation is going, we tend to look a lot at the product. Do you have a minimum viable product? Do you have a potential market for the product, or at least you have a proof of concept, because with technology, we talk about proof of concept. And this is one area. The second area that is important to pay attention to when you are a startup or a company besides the product, is a question of the vehicle that is intended to take the product to market, i.e. the company. Do you have processes? Do you have systems in place? Do you have people in place? And this talks to the notion of corporatization. And that's very, very important to understand that you need to think about this. And as an entrepreneur, don't think you are the beginning and the end of everything else. You still need the vehicle that will take the product to the market. The third element, which is the subject of today's discussion, is really around the team and the people. What we have learned in TIA, and I'm sharing this with you with the deepest sense of honesty. In the majority of our customers are researchers from university. Researchers from the university, they apply for funding to us, which we provide. But one of the problems we find that most of the technologies that we commercialize into the market, in fact, come from SMMEs that we support other than universities. The traction from universities is very slow. Why? Because researchers have a wrong view of themselves as commercial directors as well, without acknowledging that they don't have what it takes to be there. And so this is an area which we are paying attention to. And I think as entrepreneurs, what is important for me is just acknowledge that which you are not able to do. Because if you don't, you are guaranteed failure because everything will center around you, and you refuse the notion of accepting that you need to bring complementary skills into that which you are trying to drive. And perhaps it's okay as a researcher to accept that you can be a chief technology officer, and that's it. But we have to bring people with correct commercial skills, correct IP management skills, correct sales skills, and all of that. And I think it's important to form a proper team around yourself. And so for me, those are the key things that I thought we could highlight. One of the things perhaps that I can speak about a little bit more, and this is really around the question of the jockey, right, is to say that the system is there to support entrepreneurs. Ubuntu is one of the great participants in the space, so he understands this quite well. A key gap is really access to one-stop shop for information access by a lot of the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are all over the place trying to figure out. And the system is, as I say, dynamic, but at the same time is a mess because there's nothing that brings us together and collaborate as a system to make sure that entrepreneurs don't invest a lot of their time in runarounds, trying to find help in different places of the same thing, but there's a one-stop shop. And I think that's an area that we have to fix. I think the second item here is really focusing on the psychosocial state of the team. For me, that is important. And I think it's a key message that I really would like you to think about. A team will succeed if people who are running the organization and are part of the organization have got certain, I think, level of state of mind must be, in the right place. We come from different cultural backgrounds. We come from different levels of endowments. Some of us come from poor families. Some of us come from well-to-do families. And some of us come from different family circumstances by whatever means. And we cannot ignore the impact of this on the ability of a team or an individual within the team, especially the champion, on staying the course during times of trouble. Because it's easy to start a business, but it's difficult when it begins to scale up, because that's where the challenge sits. Your ability to handle disappointment when you don't get your sales, your ability to handle disappointment when the customers are telling you that this is not working for us, or you need to go back and do it this way, the to and fro. Sometimes people give up. So companies or startups fail for either the technology can fail, or you simply don't have an appropriate vehicle to take your product to market, or the team just doesn't cut it because you don't gel. Just in terms of the team itself, which is the second point probably I would like to make, it's around finding complementarities, complementary skills in your team. And I spoke about that a little bit earlier on. You know, your different commercial people, your different IP management people, your different sales and marketing people. And, you know, if it's not an engineer, that's fine. But I find that with SMMEs, what you probably need to look at, and I'm saying this upfront already as things that we should think about and be aware of. And these are the things that we're grappling with in TIA. We find a lot of entrepreneurs with ideas, but sometimes you are not a scientist necessarily. So you need to be aware that you need to bring a scientist or an engineer to convert your idea into reality. Because if you don't know what makes a motor boil, your idea will only continue to remain an idea. So it's important that you bring all of the complementary skills. Point 2 around the team itself is really around issues of coherence of the team, because it's not only about bringing competent people with knowledge, but coherence of the team, chemistry within the team, cohesion within the team. If you don't have those, including trust, you have a problem. You can have the most competent person, but if he's a misfit in the culture of the team and what you desire as a company, you must accept that get that person off the bus. It's as simple as that. And then most of that are hard decisions to be made. I know I'm saying this, that you should bring certain skills on board. And I'm aware that you may not have necessarily the money to do that. What is important, you must be able and willing to give equity, because people tend to hang on and want to own everything, but you must distribute equity so that you can incentivize people to come on board. The work-life balance issue is important, and this is my last point. I'm going to say it's very important, and I was saying to Susanna yesterday, you need to deal with the question of whether do you work for the company or is the company working for you? The important thing is that the company or the vehicle that you are running, the startup, should be an embodiment of your vision. And so as a result, it should really, the level of energy you devote into that, it is because you are driven by inspiration towards achieving something. And the vehicle becomes a means to that end. And so for me, if you are working for the company, the risk is that you will be working for a company that is just not working at all and slaving on all the time, trying to revive something that is not working. But if it works for you, it's a different story. And I think it tends to drive you to success. So this question of the team and the psychosocial support that is required in the market to support entrepreneurs to greater success is an important gap in the system. And I really think it's something that we need to focus on and getting the right team in place. But their minds, the state of mind of the entrepreneurs is a critical success factor. So we spoke about data, and there's simply no data for this. And I know that Headroom is beginning to pick up on this as an important part of the work that they do. I think there's a questionnaire and a survey that will come out. From TIA, I'm going to encourage all of our entrepreneurs to participate. And I really call on everybody else to participate in this, because I think this seminar itself will be a great addition to that. But at the end of the day, it's about data, guys. We really need to all participate in this. I'm going to stop here, Chen.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Patrick. It's done a fantastic overview of everything that we will be speaking about today, and the other speakers will also touch on. So I'm very pleased about that. And we are, Tarisira, I'm not sure, I can't see the questions that might have come from the audience. Can you maybe tell us if there's anything being asked that Patrick could maybe still answer?
Yes, and I must announce, Suzanne, that please, guys, forgive me. You know, I accepted this participating in this on the back of another engagement.
Yes.
So, yeah, I will be exiting not too long from now. I've got a 12 o'clock with the CSIR. Okay,
let us roll from here then. Thank you very much, Patrick. I would like us to share the link to this survey during the session and also at the end, so everybody can go in, fill it out, or if you are representing an organization right now, you can also easily distribute it to your entrepreneurs, to your cohorts that you are looking after, and please get in touch with us then, and we are very happy to send you sort of group results or some, we can differentiate within the survey specifically for your organization. And I cannot reiterate more how important data is in all of this, and understanding really the jockeys that we are trying to develop here, and in adapting the solutions and the interventions that are out there for them. I will hand over here to Buntu, and Buntu will be focusing on the team readiness aspect of the investment readiness process for entrepreneurs and startups now.
Well, thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you, Patrick, as well. Great to see you. We appreciate and respect the work at TIA, especially the views that Patrick was sharing in terms of where to take things in the ecosystem and in taking businesses into commercial, scalable, and innovations into commercial, scalable spaces. I think we share many views on this, like not having silos in the ecosystem, as well as having an integrated development for businesses, especially an integrated investment process or investment readiness process. And this is, part of what we believe this means is that becoming investment ready is more than the technicality around the product, the technology, and the business, but also the team and the people related to it. And so we're working with partners such as Headroom on bringing forth programs to all the entrepreneurs. I see some of you here that have been on the program. Hello, great to see you. And in order to have more integrated processes that, as Patrick says, also appreciate the psychosocial journey that the founders and the team is taking in that process. So I really appreciate to be able to share with you a little bit more about what we're doing and what we've seen when it comes to investment readiness in this, in particular in relation to the team. And I mean, we believe that entrepreneurs are the ones that build the African continent. We are existing to support tech entrepreneurs. And if you consider the early stage entrepreneur, particularly, this is where we see that there's a constraint, or it's the bottleneck to see a thriving, sustainable, and inclusive ecosystem of scaling businesses. And over the last 14 years at the summit, we've worked with many entrepreneurs. Almost every year we have 1,000 entrepreneurs applying to our programs and hundreds of them pitching at the summit. And over the last 3 years in the Tech Tribe Accelerator, we've worked with 1,000+ entrepreneurs, getting them investment ready, especially in 2020 when it was a very difficult year. And Lisa will remember some of the experience there and how that impacted businesses, and as well as the founders themselves. And so, really what we've seen is that the team's impact on the success of being able to raise funding, on being able to scale the business and access the type of market is much more critical than most people believe. And this is since 2020, of course, been something that we've increasingly trying to put an emphasis on, because starting a company is hard. It's very difficult. It's by its nature. When you're building a company, the fact is that you don't know enough. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. And if you probably knew everything that would go into building the company and you were rational, maybe you wouldn't start that company. But this is what makes the entrepreneurial journey even so beautiful and so important, especially for developing the economies sustainably and inclusively. Is that the entrepreneurs that go through this are actually taking on much more risk than can ever be imagined when you're starting. And I think there's 5 things I do want to share around getting investment ready alongside the team, and preparing the team and considering the psychosocial aspects of it. Firstly is, there's no entrepreneur, of all the entrepreneurs I've met at least, and I'm sure many of those we've worked with, that have ever raised funding and gotten past the valley of death, or the VOD. If you can imagine, across the investment innovation cycle, from early stage and ideation, and then going into some of the seed and Series A MVP, and then scaling into mass market and commercialization, that expands into different markets, and scaling the business. In here is where the early stage entrepreneur is, or the valley of death, where the business is. There's high risk of failure. It will impact some people's lives and the founders' lives. There's risk involved, but at the same time, it's big enough to be risky, but it's not big enough to attract the right resources. These are the entrepreneurs that we focus on in that valley of death, and none of them, we've heard said that it was a valley, a walk in the park. Every entrepreneur has passed this point often says there were very dark times, and there was a very difficult time, personally, as the founding team, or personally as entrepreneurs, and maybe some might say that this is an important part of building the character and building the person in order to handle the business that is to come. But we do believe, and I do believe that if we can address, if we can address more team readiness, we can decrease the numbers of the rate of failure in the valley of death. And secondly, a business is nothing but a legal registration that's representing a group of people. It's representing an organization, and an organization is people. So the founding team and as well as the team, these are the people that take the great idea to the market, as Patrick rightfully alluded to, and it means that we cannot consider the opportunity of the business without appreciating that there are both technical and business aspects, as well as the human aspects that really bind the technology, bind the product, bind the resources and assets and so on. And the decisions made are made by people. And so, for us in the context of Africa and South Africa, in terms of building entrepreneurs, which is very different to the contexts around the world, such as in the Silicon Valleys, the Tel Avivs in Israel, and Berlin in Germany, some of the other ecosystems. Here, I think, the appreciation of being patient with the founder, holding hands with the founder, and taking them through the journey is very important. And thirdly, early stage investors, we've seen 30% of our entrepreneurs raised out of the TTA in 2020 raised funding, and half of them increased their and this was a very difficult year, but they increased their revenue. And often we see that investors are not so much investing on the opportunity space or the technology or the traction, as much as they're investing in the team. And those things are important, your traction, but really what they are is an indicator of the team, and what the team is capable of doing, because the investor knows that whatever plan you set out to do when you raise your funding, which often is the case, you raise up funding and you have a plan, they know that plan hardly ever is executed as planned. Often it's wrong. And you will be iterating your way to towards the opportunity space that you're identifying and exploiting that and solving the problem through a set of ideas. But when you're starting off, that plan is going to be wrong. And so entrepreneurs, investors know that this is going to change, but if they have the right team, then they will get their finance back. And quickly on the last 2 points is that YC Mentor, Y Combinator Mentor, globally known accelerator Anu Hariharan mentioned that the difference between a $0 to $1 million business or being a $0 to $1 billion business is often set in that first 10 to 20 hires, the first to 10, 20 people. And the culture, the environment, the psychosocial space there is passed on to the next 50, which higher than the next 100 and the next 200 and so on. And so the team and the founding team in the beginning, the way that they built and the psychosocial aspects of it are incredibly important for investment readiness. And lastly, when you're building your business, really what you're doing is working towards a moving target. You must think big, work small. You must be unwavering about the overall strategy, but tactically you must be flexible. And within the team, within the environment of constraints that you're working with, is a very stressful thing to do. And I believe that we need to continue to talk about this and support teams in becoming investment ready while appreciating this. We need to destigmatize this conversation and systemize it so that it's part of the entrepreneurship support system. And with that, I think we can truly build a foundation and an ecosystem that is catered for rewriting the Africa Rising narrative and building a sustainable and inclusive ecosystem across the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Buntu. It is really, really inspiring, especially from where we are sitting here at Headroom, just how few organizations and SA Innovation Summit and the Tech Tribe community being definitely in the leading seat of this, how few organizations are aware of this and how few organizations have actually internalized this huge shortcoming of the entrepreneurship development ecosystem and are determined to do something about it. So thank you very much. We are very excited to work with you and to support you in just bringing in the next generation of innovators onto the continent. And now I'm going to hand over to Nambula, the founder and CEO of WEEC in Zambia, who are doing amazing work in accelerating entrepreneurs at both incubation and acceleration levels. I think it was mainly in agriculture at the beginning. Now they are spreading a little bit further. And Nambula has an immense amount of knowledge and particularly the practical experience that she will be bringing into this talk today. Over to you, Nambula, and welcome.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susanna. It's great to connect on this very important topic and very exciting to hear some of the insights coming out of Patrick and Buntu. I think these are key areas that I can really resonate, having worked in the innovation and inclusive ecosystem for some time. So I'm going to share a little bit more about some of the practical experiences out of supporting, enterprises in Zambia and really focusing on growing, the acceleration ecosystem, sharing some of the insights from acceleration processes that we have embarked on the last few years. So WEEC is an entrepreneurial community that is specifically looking at supporting majority female owned or led companies. And basically, we also support investment readiness across a whole spectrum from capital raising to profitable exit. But at the same time, addressing some of the key barriers that most of the companies and local enterprises are facing in terms of scaling their businesses, going into new markets, and developing innovation products. One of the key areas of focus, or rather maybe let me talk about some of the trends that we have seen, which have also informed our design in acceleration programs here in Zambia. We noticed, first of all, that there's a growth in terms of global growth in acceleration programs. And this has been driven, by the need to grow high growth, high potential businesses that will contribute to job creation, but also overall to economic growth. And I think this has been a key area of interest for WEAC, given the fact that our interest is to provide very comprehensive interventions, that cut across economies, but also the social aspects that affect the key success factors for any business that is operating in a very dynamic environment. And I think recently looking at how, global trends are indicating and pointing more towards growing very adaptive enterprises that are able to meet the demands and the challenges of the new economies, which is basically mainly based on knowledge and skills and talent. We are more now focused on to being driven by return on investments in every interventions that we package in support of companies that are looking to grow in very key markets. And so WEAC, has had experience. Our interest, first of all, is to see how we can increase, the return on investment with some of the entrepreneurs and SMEs and startups that are going through our acceleration programs. So this ROI focus really, speaks to focusing on some of the key elements that are success drivers, and that will also, drive the process of achieving better business outcomes. Because ideally, our belief is that once entrepreneurs and these companies that go through our acceleration programs succeed and achieve better business outcomes, it also guarantees some level of sustainability in terms of supporting innovative and sustainable business models. And we've seen this across various sectors. Our acceleration programs are tailored specifically to address market trends and also the needs of growing businesses. And one of the issues that we have identified year after year, as we churn out more and more businesses into the market, we realize that there are some missing elements beyond supporting the business, beyond supporting the technical aspects of the business. And you find that a common trend is that most of the accelerator programs are really focusing on the side of the business, growing the business, developing financial and business models. And they're also focusing on very key metrics, assessing metrics that are more focused on, business technical outcomes. You will notice that a number of studies have been done, alluding to some of the results coming out of startup failure and startup success. And most of these results are really skewed towards how businesses are performing in terms of their ROI outcome, as well as, anything to do with return on investments, financial returns, and so on and so forth. But we see this as a major drawback because there are key elements that we are beginning to notice, which I think are also pointing to the fact that in the next few years, there'll be need to focus more and invest more into those areas that are more to do with psychosocial well-being of entrepreneurs and companies that are looking to grow. And these are mostly referred to as soft skills or power skills, that create teams that are able to adapt better to the challenges that they are facing. So when you look at some of the global trends, last December, I was just coming out of a Slush in Finland, and you will notice that there's more interest actually even by investors that is going into investing in founding teams, investing in talent and in skills. But I think one major experience also is that in as much as we can invest in skill and in talent, there's need for intentional intervention, to ensure that we are maximizing deployment of talent and skill. And this can only happen in an environment, a supportive environment where startups and companies are able to use their power skills to address some of the challenges that they are facing. So we are in partnership with the Accelerated Growth for SMEs program funded by the Finnish Foreign Affairs. We have piloted an acceleration process that takes into consideration two aspects, and that is developing the business and developing the founder. And we have worked with Headroom, to sort of test the psychosocial elements of any acceleration process that is interested in achieving better business outcomes, by focusing more or investing more in teams and how they work together, how they adapt and harness their growth goals. And so through this program, which is called Level Up, we worked with a group of 20 companies across different sectors in agriculture, in fintech, in mining services, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. And I can say that this was a group of very dynamic, companies that are operating in different, markets. And we did notice a few things in common that are also a realization for us that we need to begin tailoring and packaging these acceleration systems better to really address some of those issues that entrepreneurs and startups are struggling with, in terms of facing business growth, facing dynamics in the market and so on and so forth. And one of the things that come out very evidently is that, you are dealing with, groups of companies and small growing firms that are working under extreme pressure. The expectations for any small and growing business to make it into market is quite high. Expectations from investors, expectations from stakeholders, from suppliers, and also you will find that the stress comes not only from internal, factors, but also external factors. But I must say that these are companies and startups that through undergoing a program like Level Up, where we are supporting business readiness alongside team readiness, a number of aspects come out which make us realize that, there's so much stress that these businesses are operating under. They're facing stress from failure, potential failure of their businesses, running out of cash. But most of them are also to do with how they relate, within their internal operations, whether it's with their teams, their families. And as you know, most of these businesses, and I think this is common across businesses that are being run by families. So you will also notice that the internal social interactions and connections actually trigger some of the high risk indicators, which allude to the fact that there's high potential for this business, to fail, whether they're looking into going into a new market or to growing their business, developing a new product, and everything is correlated. And we'll notice that in the beginning of the acceleration program, there was fear, of these startups and, business founders coming out to talk about those issues that they thought were affecting their businesses and the opportunities that, they could be facing in the future. There's also very little awareness. And this is why I like it when Patrick and I think Buntu also mentioned The fact that, you know, it's very important to take an ecosystem approach, because ultimately what we are looking to do is to develop, you know, psychosocial systems and ecosystems that will enable, you know, enterprise support organizations that are investing into supporting business acceleration for these startups to look more critically into those areas of, you know, cementing how teams work together, how founders create resilient ways of adapting and responding to challenges that they face in the market. And so at this point, I'd just like maybe Susanna to talk a little bit about some of the statistics that came out of the Level Up Acceleration Program, which also somehow validate the need to invest more in teams and relationships and psychosocial elements of any business. Susanna?
Thank you, Nambula. So I had the slide on pretty much the whole time while you were speaking. So I hope that our attendees have had a chance to absorb some of the outcomes here, or the results. I would just like to maybe wrap it up in a few realizations that we all have come to at the end of this program. And that is that jockeys absolutely matter, that businesses, particularly at the stage of looking for investment, are actually at the end of a journey. They are at the beginning of the next journey, but we must realize that they are tired, they are exhausted. The amount of effort that they've put into building their businesses up to this point has been enormous. The strain, as you can see in these red zones, on them in all areas of their well-being has been absolutely enormous. I mean, when we embarked on this exercise with WEAC, we weren't expecting anything like this in terms of just the size of the problem and the prevalence of the problem. And I will never forget the faces around the room when we presented these statistics to the group, back to the group. You know, the burnout, the levels of like really pushing breaking point constantly, the levels of avoiding difficult conversations or kind of perceived or anticipated difficulties because you just don't have any more bandwidth to deal with another problem. And that was immediately followed by this huge like sigh in the room, sigh of relief, you know, when they realized like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. You know, all of these people sitting around me asking for big money from these investors seem so together, and they seem so ready, and they seem so fresh. And actually, it is not what is happening. So unfortunately, we don't have more time today to go more in depth on these results, but this is also the reason why we are encouraging all of you and your organizations to participate in our survey so that we can get more insights into this data and then share more practical approaches. And I will, Nambula, we also left this view on for you, which are the key takeaways that I think you mentioned as you went along. And yeah, one of, I think before we get Greg on the line here, what came out, which ties into Greg's presentation, is that pretty much every one of those entrepreneurs we worked with said they've got the most amazing team. Great, competent, helpful, they are fun, they are well liked, they have parties together, and they look forward to seeing each other at work. But look at the percentage of them who said, I rely on my team when everything around me crashes. You know, these entrepreneurs still go home, pull off the full nighters, pull off the all weekenders, put their families on standby, and you know, try and basically put the fires out literally on their own. So where is the problem? Greg, we are hoping you are going to give us some insights into this. Thank you very much, Nambula, for your entry. Very inspiring work that you are doing, and we love being involved and supporting you in your goals in any way we can.
Thank you, Susanna. Such a pleasure.
Thanks, Susanna. Let me jump in quickly. I see my bio is up there, and yeah, so my background's in corporate. I've had many years working in some of the larger companies, and I'm an executive coach, and I work with executives and their teams at large companies as well as small companies and startups. And I basically help leaders and organizations navigate the changes that they need to go through to get to the next stage of performance or growth or scaling. And thanks for that slide on the dependence on teams. I think it's a wonderful lead into what I'm going to speak about today. So the biggest challenge, and I focused a lot on the sort of smaller businesses and startups and sort of founders with these small businesses. The biggest barrier to shift into the next level of organizational capability and growth and stage in their growth is, and I think it was called the valley of death earlier on, is the shift from a small business to the next stage of the business, i.e. beyond myself and my spouse, or the 3 of us or the 4 of us, to a business that's larger, 20 people, 25 people. And besides the funding and the growth and all the other stuff, on the soft side, the people side, the biggest challenge is, how do I move from me being the technical expert and doing all the work, and then going to find the right people to form a team that can really run this business with me, and so that I can then learn to become the leader, the manager, the orchestrator of this business, and I can go and do my job as that person and depend on my team to run the business, do the things that must be done, and treat my clients the way I've treated them. So the biggest challenge is that a lot of the people that start business, they're the technical experts and they do everything, and the business gets off the ground because of their expertise. But there has to come a time when their role changes to being the leader, the executive, and their business needs to run without them being hands-on involved in the business. So it's really a process that the owner and his executive team needs to understand. How do we find the right people? How do we go and hire them? How do we onboard them, get them to work together and deploy them into the business? And how do we align them so that the business performs at a world-class level, and so that we can deliver the results we need to? And that's the process. That's really the challenge for founders to do, for business owners to do. So the key question to me is, as a business owner, is how do I bring in people who will work as well as I do and treat my clients as well as me, and then commit to making this business really work well? That is the key question, and how do we do it? So I'd like to answer that. So for me, the first thing is we need the right people in the business. And then we need them to be sitting on the right seats, doing the right thing. So really it's about my ability to go and find these people, the talent, attract them to me, and then get them on board and hire them, and then retain them so that this business works. Then how do we integrate these people into high-performing teams? How do they work together, collaborate, innovate, and deliver results? That's the next challenge I have. And so developing these high-performing teams really is the secret sauce of a business growing. And I think there's a lot of the speakers have alluded to the fact that it's a neglected part of successful organizations, the soft skills of finding people, getting them to work well together, and retaining them to make sure the business thrives and grows, and getting more of them. So this doesn't happen by accident. It's actually a skill. And building high performance teams in my book is a process with tools, techniques, and it can be learned. So you understand high performing teams in your business. What do you have when you have that? You have high trust, you have high commitment, you have people that take accountability for what they're going to do, there's ownership, and then they work together well. And then the delivery is you get the results you need to be successful. So, and how do you do that? Through the process of developing high performance teams. And once you have these teams working, you have to then start building this out. More teams get added and working together. So you need to think about what's the culture of my organization. And why is culture so important? Well, culture is the thing that's going to attract talent, and it's going to retain talent, and it's going to get people to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to work and I'm excited. And it also creates people that are dependable. We've heard a story of 15% of business owners can depend on their team. And that's an alarming statistic. So we want a culture that where the business owners are saying, 100% of the business owners are saying, I have a team that I can depend on, and I can get on and do what I do, and I can sleep at night because everybody's taking responsibility. So really a culture that attracts talented people and retains them, fosters collaboration, working together, and encourages innovation. We spoke about, the previous speaker spoke about adaptability, the ability to adapt, the ability to come up with good ideas, new ideas, and be innovative so we can actually go and compete in the marketplace. So this new culture I'm speaking about, it's called psychological safety. It's a culture that everybody wants to be in because it's a safe place to be, and it's a place, so it's not a soft and easy where I can do what I want to do. It's actually a high performing place, but on the people side, people have my back. That's what, and so the definition for this from Amy Edmondson is, she says, it is a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking and doing their jobs. So it's really about someone having my back. And I would like to describe what psychological safety is. So if we have a culture, hello?
Excuse me, Greg.
Yes.
Hi, excuse me, Greg. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you here briefly. We are out of time. We've pretty much run out of our time. And we still want to give Janine her place. If, you know, we would be very grateful for those attending and still bear with us for a few minutes. It shouldn't take us past, say, 10 past 12. But what I can say is that Greg is doing 2 webinars specifically on the topic of building high performance teams and on creating psychological safety within such teams. And both of these are available on our website. And he has very generously offered a 20% discount to all of those who would like to sign up with a discount code that Kaylee will be sharing now on the chat function. And yeah, if you're interested in exploring this topic a little bit further, you're most welcome to spend another 2 extra hours with Greg, specifically on these 2 amazing, very cool topics. Over to you, Greg.
Okay, no, cool. I've been actually speaking very fast because I'm very mindful of the time, and so so I apologize for those that are thinking this is a train driving at 100 k's an hour. Yes, it is. But I'm so excited about the material, and I want you to know about it and understand it. So high performing teams, the first one, how to build them, how to develop them, and growing your business through having the right people together as teams delivering the results. Then the next thing is those teams collectively forming a culture which has psychological safety. And why is it so important? Four aspects of psychological safety. The first one is it's a place where people are welcomed and are included. They feel they're part of the team. And especially in these days where there's such an emphasis on diversity and people being different, we're saying this is a place when you join us, you come and you can be yourself, but connect to us and be part of our team, and we're going to go and do magic work together. So there's a conscious joining, belonging, as if you're part of Manchester United or Liverpool, or you're part of a family. So that's the first thing. I'm included. I'm part of this. Then the ability to learn and develop. We all come into businesses where there's aspects I need to learn, and it is a fearful thing. Can I make mistakes? Can I learn, and is someone going to help me? So it's an environment that fosters learning, support, mentoring, and help people get to the places they need to be with the skills they need. Then the third thing is that it's a place that actually welcomes people to do their best work and contribute. And in exchange for that, the business allows you to do it your way because you're so committed and you collaborate. And then the fourth one is challenged. There's an environment that says, if you have a different view, we'd love to hear it. And if you have an idea, we'd like to hear it. Let's get everybody's ideas into this so that we can be the best we can. And that's an important aspect, because innovation, collaboration, working together only happens when people safely can ask questions, contribute, and because the opposite of that is fear. And when we have fear, people keep quiet, zip, they keep their heads down, they tick boxes and do their job. And we don't want those kind of people in the business. We want people that sign up, that commit, and that are accountable. So psychological safety is such an important aspect. We have to think about, as we build our businesses, what kind of business am I building? Is it a place that's going to attract people? People want to come and work here because it's so cool to work here, even though we're working hard and we really pushing shoulder to the wheel? Or is it a business that people hear that, whoa, it's not nice. You have to keep quiet, keep your head down, and just do what you want to do and go home. And the choice is ours. So the webinars we're speaking about is that we've productized the ability to do these two things. And we know that for entrepreneurs, it is they don't have a lot of time, so it's an hour each for these webinars, and we think it's worthwhile. And outside of that, through Headroom, we could also do bigger interventions if need be, because we're here to help businesses and the owners grow their business and become successful. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Greg, for that. And we look forward to having you on more of these webinars with us, and yeah, unwrapping these topics even further. I would like to now introduce Janine van Malwijk, who has also been working with Headroom for a while, and she will be focusing on the individual well-being aspect of entrepreneurship and of entrepreneurs who are the driving force behind all of those fantastic stats that everybody wants to invest in and put on their presentations. So Janine, I'm very pleased to have you on this panel. Thank you very much for accepting our invite. I am a little sorry to have to rush you a little, but I think the speakers before you have also given this topic a good introduction.
I have, yes. Super, thank you, Susanna. Hi, everybody. Okay, so just to kind of put it in a nutshell, and it really follows on Greg's talk very nicely, and this is about you, the individual, because you are essentially the most important person in your business. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the stats that was given by Nabula, but the most interesting thing about that was the 80% that avoided situations with unpleasant thoughts and emotions. So it's about going, how do you come back into yourself, back into your body, because there's such a forward focus on the goal, and creating, as Greg spoke about, that psychological safety within yourself, that foundation, so that you can operate from a very grounded space. Paying attention to your mental well-being creates some form of resilience, and it equips you better to deal with those stresses that come at you from out the left field, which do happen. So, and the fact that you people are here makes you a very interesting group. So I would like to know more about your mental health journey, and I'm very interested in the results of that survey. Okay, so putting everything in a nutshell. All right, so just while I speak, we're starting now, just reflect on the things that it brings up in you. So asking yourself, like, am I enjoying my life? Am I feeling motivated? And why not? Okay, so because the most, you know, the most common statement I hear from managers and executives in my practice is, why didn't I come and see you sooner? So it's about creating a space, really, where sooner is normal. It's as normal as going to the GP for your stress headache. So it's that dual bottom line where mental health is just as important as the other factors as well. So I just want to go and look at that startup curve quickly, Susanna. So if we see it in terms of the emotional startup curve, and it's really that as within, so without, and we look at that black line, there's that incredible high, and then the incredible low, and then that slogging, and then that sort of emotional range, which is in that normal emotional range, but it's still very hard. Well, that's very taxing on you. And then if you look at the other lines as well, you start seeing an increase of mental stress. There's the risk of depression, social withdrawal, your social relationships start being affected, You start losing confidence, the imposter syndrome, and the anxiety, which gets you really stuck in that stress loop. So if you can go back to the overview slide. Thank you. So I'm quickly going to look at self-awareness, identity, and community. And this is really about that relationship with yourself. So I must just quickly think, how am I going to condense this? So the self-awareness is just bringing that energy inwards. It's that in-breath and turning your attention inwards and focusing on the self. And observing your thoughts, your feelings and emotions and naming it. And it's also about owning it. And it's okay to be in that space, because it was interesting in one of the earlier speakers that everybody was surprised to find out that other people were in the same space as well. And this is about the sharing. In states of distress or stress, you start struggling to see yourself clearly. And this is where self-care practice is important, and just to focus on the breathing in terms of that in-breath, and just bringing oxygen into your body, just to calm that nervous system and bring a bit of oxygen to that prefrontal cortex so that you can start thinking clearly. It's, in a sense, if you're looking at the self-awareness, it's also about listening and getting to know your body, getting to know your emotions. And then this, coupled with knowledge of what stress does to you, for example, can equip you in how to deal with that as well. All right, so, okay, I get it, Susanna. Self-identity is really that sense of who am I? You know, when you identify with your business and that starts crumbling or floundering, we have what we call an identity crisis, and you start losing your sense of self-worth, your sense of self-value, and depression and anxiety come in as well. Communication creates connections. And you are who you are in relation to yourself and to others. And that is really a foundational aspect of who you are. So by listening to yourself, having that relationship and that conversation with yourself, and being able to name what it is that you're struggling with and owning it, enables you and equips you to start dealing with your stuff. The one point I do want to just go in is that reach out and asking for help. That's very important. You don't need to do this alone. I'm just trying to look at the power skills, referring to the soft skills. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and show vulnerability. Susanna.
Thank you, Janine. I understand we don't have enough space today to unpack this, but that is why, you know, once again, we have made, or we are in the process of making some of your talks available through our website, people to access. It really is an investment that you won't look back at, and then the next level, and perhaps through, you know, some things that you've been battling with and struggling to find answers to. It can also help your team members or your employees, you know, especially in smaller teams. It makes a big difference if there's just one person who isn't feeling themselves, or who's going through some tough times. We all do at stages. So these are just quick tips, you know, to keep in mind. And yeah, there's always help available, and it can be as you know, as quick sometimes as just connecting with somebody for half an hour, and they kind of start thinking and set you on the right path. But just the feeling of like acceptance of not always being on your top game takes the psychological safety of your teams and of yourselves and of your families much further.
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. It really is. All right. Thank you.
And yeah, so thank you very much, Janine. We will definitely be seeing more of you and have you on more of our talks. We look forward to that. And just, you know, we would love everybody to participate in the survey, help gather some more data, get some more insights, you know, be able to give you more advice. Greg's webinars are available on our website already, and Janine's will be coming up in the next few days. And if you use the discount code that Tarisiro and Kaylee have just shared, you know, you can get a nice discount there. And I will hand over to Tarisiro just to wrap up. Thank you. Thank you to all of our fantastic speakers and collaborators for accepting this invite and for doing the preparation and sharing their very valuable insights. And I would like to also thank everybody who made it to this talk and who stayed with us, you know, over time, all the way to the end. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Susanna, and thank you to the team at Headroom for the session today. I think it was really, really insightful and exploring the different aspects of being, you know, business ready, team ready, and then also looking at the psychological aspect of it, just as an entrepreneur. And something that us, as you know, as a tech tribe, we tell our entrepreneurs is that you are not alone. I think many always feel that way, and it's a very difficult journey on its own, as we've seen from that the emotional that emotional support graph, as it were, and just being able to see that, I think, you know, the work that Headroom is doing is so important and so valuable. So the entrepreneurs that are in this session with us today, I will say this to you: you are not alone. You now have been introduced to Headroom and the work that they do, and they are there to help you. And us as the Tech Tribe as well, we'll do our best to help you on the business side, but on the emotional and personal side of it, because you are human, you have Headroom support as well. So I'd like to thank Headroom. Thank you so much. And also to all our speakers, to Janine and Greg, Patrick and Absentia, Nambula and Buntu as well. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I hope you have all enjoyed the session. As always, we will share the recording with everybody after the session once it's available to go through, and as well, if Headroom allows us, the presentation as well. There are a few questions, I think, that were asked in regards to funding. We will respond to those as we are over time. We will respond to those from individually to you, and just be able to support you in that way. And Liesel actually had a point to make as well about that, and she says she's found it very helpful to see someone like a psychologist, as it's helped her as well, and it helps you resolve all the baggage and makes you a better person for your business. And that's really true. You can't pour from an empty cup, as I always say. It's important to look after you. So please do that. We apologize for running over time, but thank you for sticking around and being with us till the end of the session. Thank you so much to our speakers, and thank you for being here. Have a good day further.